Well, what we're going to start out with today is harmonics and in nature and in art and architecture, and just some brief discussion of that, and just so you can understand, that all things, I mean, from the very small, from atomic structure out to universal structure, they're all functioning on the same natural rhythms. If you look at your chart 1, this is page 3.1. This is we have to top light this. How do I top light this thing? Oh yeah, okay, upper. Okay. Ah. This is why I like the fifth harmonic so much. It's a perfect Fibonacci expansion within the circle, and I think this is why it's so powerful. So I found these diagrams in this other book. I'm going to put together a book list for you today while Jeannie's speaking, and also the worksheet you requested. I'll sit down and do that. She's going to do a section after I talk, and then do her other section after lunch. And so I'll pick up at the end, and we'll have all that stuff together by then. But you notice within the fifth, and then at the top is the 10th harmonic, basically inside the fifth. And you'll notice that the division of the 10th harmonic is also the Pythagorean triangle, which is an interesting geometric shape in itself. And the next chart just kind of shows in a more complex way how the fifth harmonic fits in with the golden mean, which is the Fibonacci expansion, and the Pythagorean triangle, etc., etc. Your page 3. This is that's the growth pattern of a daisy. It also works on a sunflower and a thistle, and but it's the wheel of 24. And within the wheel of 24, it's there's a Fibonacci spiral coming out both ways that describe the pattern of the growth. So, and you'll see this over and over again in nature. 5th and 15th harmonic progressions that are described by Fibonacci spirals. Another good example of that is diatoms. You can see the star, the fifth harmonic star, right in the middle there.
Can you talk up just a little bit?
The diatoms.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, my mic is on, but I think can we turn up? Yeah, can we turn it back up one notch? No, that's not good. Well, I guess we can't. I'll just have to.
That's better.
Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I like this one a lot. This is that's the mandala pattern created by harmonic vibrations of a drop of water, just an isolated drop of water. That's if it's subject to vibration, that's the kind of, and it's 15th harmonic. You've got 12 peaks around the outside.
You said it's a 15th harmonic?
Well, that's the 12 and 24. So you've got offset. What you've got is two offset 12 peak spirals, or 12 peak circles offset within one another. And then that's the, I don't even know what that is. It's a square and circle in the atomic pattern at the tip of a platinum needle, which I don't even understand. Maybe Ahsoka could explain that. Explain that to me. I just thought that was really great because it's a circle and a square, you know, described in that pattern. There's your daisy, your 24, your wheel of 24, 15th harmonic, with the Fibonacci spiral. You can see that, and we see the exact same pattern in the feathers of a peacock, the same expansion, and not just those, in many forms of life. This book, The Power of Limits, this is where I got all of these diagrams. It's a great book for just, it was written by an architect, and it just draws, it's just about, you know, natural rhythms and how they're copied in ancient architecture and art, and also how they relate to the human body and the bodies of mammals, fish, insects. Everything relates back to the Fibonacci expansion, and they're all perfectly organized. Everything is perfectly organized. Even this, when you do this and hold your index finger up and sweep it down, it describes a Fibonacci spiral, just like that. So if you ever want to draw one, just mark the tip of your finger. You can just follow the tip of your finger like that. And that's your Fibonacci spiral. It would just continue in like that.
What was the name of that book?
It's called The Power of Limits. I'll put it on the book list. Again, the snowflake is divided also into 12 triangles. So you've got, that's the same, you get 12 of the same triangular pattern repeating. So that's half of the wheel of 24. And then you've got growth patterns and other flowers, but if you just look at any flower, you're always going to see 3s and 5s, 3s and 5s, 3s and 5s over and over again. One of my favorites is the passion flower, because it starts out at the bottom. You've got 3, 3, then you've got 5, and then in the inside you've got all these like great spirals, or there's like I counted them once, and I think there was 48, and then 72, and then it goes back to 3s and 5s on the top within the stamen. Here's the pagoda of the Yakushi temple. I love that little diagram right there. It's such a nice expansion. And then your next page is the garden of the Ryonji. And then the page after that is just sort of a description of all of the, ancient Eastern cultures have always been aware of this, the power of this, the Fibonacci expansion, that natural rhythm. I mean, it's attributed to this guy Fibonacci, but this is ancient knowledge. This is not, it's just a natural expansion. And then you see the exact same spiral out in the universe. That's the spiral galaxy. This is that, page 15 is that same diagram that I showed you yesterday. That is the prime number cross. And it was great to get that book because it was kind of a validation of everything that we've been doing for the last several years. You know, and not only that, but this just keeps popping up all over the place. This wheel of 24, the 15th harmonic seems to be, and the 5th. Those seem to be the two. My favorites. I mean, as far as power outside of the conjunction, are the 15th, the 5th, and the 3rd. And the 3rd and the 5th. I mean, 3 times 5 is 15. So you've got all three are contained within the 15th. That just blows my mind that all the prime numbers just happen to hit right on those axes, and it goes all the way out to infinity. There's a whole lot of other interesting correlations that are pointed out in that book. He starts out talking about the table of elements, and there's 81 stable elements in our system. You know, there's a lot more that are listed on the periodic table, but they're not stable. They're created by man, and they'll degrade back to stable elements. You know, once they're created. But that number 81 is very powerful. Well, first of all, it's 3 to the 4th power. You know, Ahsoka and I were talking about this the other night. And there's all these relationships between the Earth and the Moon. I forgot to bring my little sheet, but let me see if I can. Actually, I don't think I forgot it. I think it's over here. I wrote a bunch of these down because they're just mind-blowing. The mass of the Earth, the ratio of the mass of the Earth to the mass of the Moon is 1 to 81. The mass, I don't have it. The ratio of the mass of the Earth to the mass of the Moon is 1 to 81. It's a 1 to 81 ratio. And if you were to do a 1 over 81, the inversion of 81, or what do you call that? What's the mathematical term? Reciprocal of 81 equals 0.01234567. Then it skips to 9, and then starts back at 0123, and that repeats, which could also be written as 0.0123456789101112 on out into infinity, because if you add the 10 to the 9, it brings the 9 to a 0 and the 8 to a 9. So then the 8 disappears. You see, and then it continues on out. It's just very interesting that it can be written that way, that the reciprocal of 81 describes the entire list of whole numbers.
Representation of a decimal system.
Exactly. And the decimal system is, I mean, you know, you might ask, why do we use the decimal system? And there's even people who would argue, you know, that it's an invention of man, but we have 10 fingers, we have 10 toes, you know. It makes sense, you know, that we use the decimal system. It's the perfect representation of numbers. Numbers are real things. And I'm trying to think of what the other. It doesn't seem like just too far out of too unusual to be a coincidence that when the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are perfectly aligned, as in a solar eclipse, that the visual size of the Moon, distance related to distance, is exactly the same size as the Sun. I mean, that relationship between the three is a perfect ratio. There's a whole lot of these other numbers. I'll get them and write them down on a list so you can see them. It's just mind-blowing. And they all also, the number 273 keeps popping up over and over again. That's the orbit of the moon is 27.32 days, the actual orbit. That's not counting the motion of the Earth. And that's absolute Kelvin. It's 273 degrees, absolute zero in the Kelvin system, which is like the decimal system of temperature. And what was it? There was another one that if you take the reciprocal of 273, you get 0.066. I mean 0.0366, which is 366 is the orbit of the Earth. So the reciprocal of the orbit of the moon describes the orbit of the Earth.
Can that be applied to other planets?
I don't know. I just this guy had made all these, had written all this stuff down. I was just going, wow, I mean, I never thought to check all that stuff out. I mean, I have tried to figure out relationships between the average speeds of the planets and things, and I can't find it. I'm a mathematician. I consider myself a novice mathematician, but I don't. I'm not in. It takes me a lot longer to find. This guy who wrote this book was a chemist. He's got degrees in chemistry, physics, math. He's got like 4 different degrees. He's just a genius.
This stuff prevails all over, Tom.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Like in a human body, the shape of our heads are based on the golden mean. I think, what is the golden mean?
1.618.
Yeah, and the
Or
eyes.
that's 5.
Part of it, and the eyes.
Exactly. Every breakdown, and the torso to the legs, to the torso to the head. That relationship, this to that is a Fibonacci expansion, and the sweep of your arm and everything. And this is all in that Power of Limits book. There's some great diagrams that show how the human body breaks down, and physical motion, how it all breaks down.
And if you're unfortunate enough not to fit that, you really look strange to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. This is true. No, well, this is why, the concept of beauty, okay, which, is arguably subjective, is not really objective, because there is an average, there is a mean body type, and that mean body type, and this is actually the body type that he used for his diagrams. He took from government surveys of the mean body type, the actual body type, weight and size and height and everything, and it's the perfect, and so there is this kind of a perfect ideal, and I think instinctively people know what that perfect ideal should look like, because it looks right, So we have a breakdown now of we were talking about the beans yesterday, the soybeans, and we had that. We're in the second phase of that Neptune-Pluto opposition, and which is an uptrend. And so right now it's just been kind of spurting up, falling back, and spurting up and falling back, and we keep always our question is always, where's our next buy? Where do we buy it again? We want to buy it every time it comes back to a critical point. And so this is a breakdown of we're going to do a breakdown of the beans using all the different systems. Actually, I think at this point maybe I ought to, before we get into this, I ought to go in on the computer and we'll describe to you how to put together the systems, and then we'll come back to these at the end. Sorry, I don't mean to confuse. So what we have to do in order to analyze our markets on a daily basis, weekly basis, intraday basis, however, whatever we need to do, we need to set up systems. And this is our system section here. And if you'll see what I've got, if I click on edit here, you'll see what I've got is a listing of geocentric one mirror, and then they go to, you see I've got 20 and 24 out there too. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Up here I've got the 10th, the 12th, the 15th. And then on the 20th and the 24th, I go out that far, the 20th and 24th harmonics, but I'm just looking at outer planets because all the inner planets would just, at that distance, they're really not creating any kind of major power, anything that we're really interested in. To set up a system, what I do is I just go into Systems, and I click on New, and say I want to set up a first harmonic system. I'll go ahead and title that. I always have my own code, and that's G1, and that would be geocentric first harmonic. Now, on my computer at home, I've got all the heliocentric first through, you can pile them in there. But I think for your purposes, you really, right now, until you get used to the idea of using them, just go home and create geocentric systems, and go ahead and do the mirrors too, but do geocentric systems for the first through, say, first through 8th right now, and get used to using them, but leave out the 7th. It doesn't divide into a whole number, and I haven't found it to be very good. So go first through 8th, and do the mirrors. So you'll have geocentric 1, 1 mirror, 2, 2 mirror, 3, 3 mirror, 4, 4 mirror, 5, 5 mirror, 6, 6 mirror, and 8, and 8 mirror. Do those, and then when you get used to using them, and then you want to do some more detailed analysis, and you might want to start creating the 9th, the 10th, the 12th, the 15th, and even farther out if you're an intraday trader and you want to find, just look at the outer planets. Because I watch outer planet aspects at 6 degrees, at 3 degrees. If you look, you're talking about Neptune and Pluto. They only come into, they only make a 15-degree move like every 40 or 50 years. You're going to be waiting. Pardon?
It's beyond my time, right?
Yeah, you're going to be waiting a long time to wait for an actual hard aspect to set up between Neptune and Pluto. But the 3-degree multiples and 6-degree multiples between Neptune and Pluto are powerful. So you need to know when they're happening. At least know when they're exact. On the bonds, I've found aspects of between the outer planets at 18-degree divisions to be extremely powerful for major reversals. If it's an 18-degree, if it's only a multiple of 18, and it's not a 36 or a 72 or a higher multiple of 18, like say it's 54, which is a multiple of 18, but it doesn't go into any other harmonic. It's powerful, but it's not as powerful if it's a 36 or a 72. But the 18 by itself is still very powerful, and that's the 20th harmonic. That's why I look at the outer planets on that harmonic, because on the bonds, I want to know. At any rate, what we do then is we go to our list down here, and I'm going to go through all of the indicators, and I'm going to go down to where the planetary lines start, and I'm going to just add one of everything. I'm going to add a Sun line, add a Mercury line, add a Venus line, add a Mars line, add a Jupiter line, add a Saturn, add a Uranus, add a Neptune, add a Pluto, and add a North Node. Always look at the node. The node is included in every one of my systems. I treat it just like a planet. Actually, I treat it like an outer planet. It's because its power is, that point is. Do all of you know what the node is, the North Node? Okay, we talked about the plane of the ecliptic, how all the planets rotate on the same plane, roughly. They back and forth across the same plane. Well, the moon orbits around the Earth, and it crosses that plane, obviously at 2 points in its orbit. And that point where it crosses each side is the north and the south node. So, and it's always rotating clockwise on the wheel of 360, and it takes 18 years for it to make a complete rotation. So we watch the North Node Well, obviously we watch this. If you're watching the north node, you're watching the south node. You know, don't get confused because the south node is just 180 degrees off of the north. So you only have to look at one. You don't have to try to both of it. That's why we only have one listed in the planetary lines. At any rate, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these lines and I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to change that to geocentric on the first value. I'm going to change the degree value to 360 because this is my first harmonic. I'm not going to have a mirror, and I'm not going to have a factor. And that's all. And I exit, and I go and I edit the Mercury line. Now you can spend an entire day just setting up your systems. You know, it's going to take you a while, but once you set them up, you never have to do it again. It's, you know, when we lectured in Singapore, I showed these guys how to do this, and then the next day I came in, and one of them approached me and he says, could you give me an upgrade disk with all the systems on it? And I said, no, I want you to have to do it, you know, because it's part of the process, you know. It's part of the spending time, you know. If it's worth it to you, you'll sit there and you'll do it. So we set everything up at geocentric 360. We go through all the lines. We edit.
360, is that a U? 360, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. The resolution is weird looking. It's 360. A U? What do you mean?
I can't tell, it looks like a U.
What
line?
Oh, it's 360?
360. 360 degrees. That's
And
the
then
first
O.
term.
So
That's
you've
the
got
first.
G, 360, and O?
And zero
Zero.
is the factor.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna show you on the factor thing in a minute how to recognize when they're wrong. But for now, see now that's going to be our first harmonic. I'm going to put every line at that division.
Now, right under it, what's that?
No, this is just the non-mirror system. We do a whole other system for that one. See now when I'm done changing every one to geocentric 360, I'm just going to edit each one. Change that to geocentric. Change that to 360. If you double click on the H, it changes to G. Change that to 360. Change every single one of them. Leave it like that. Save your system as geocentric 1.
Why are you changing them?
Why am I changing them? Because this is my geocentric first harmonic system. I want every line to be geocentric 360 degrees. First harmonic.
24 degrees.
First harmonic. Just bear with me. I think you'll get it in a minute. Okay? So I change every one of them to geocentric 360, and I go through the whole list, and I click on Save, and then we go on out. Now, if for my next one, I go geocentric, I go New, and I'm going to get my systems window down here. I'm going to go down and I'm going to add all the planetary lines. I can just double click on each one and it'll go to the top.
You didn't add moon, is there a particular reason?
Well, if I add the moon on all these systems, it's going to make a big mess. I only look at the moon during the day on a very small time frame, and I look at it during the day for intraday reversal times, like the moon at specific degrees, moon aspecting planets. I mean, the moon, I do an awful lot with the moon, but not here, not on systems, only unless it's moon conjunct something. I want to know where that's happening, you know, especially if it's happening during the day. I want to know what the price level is, but I can easily do that on my intraday chart just by adding a 360 moon line on there. It's usually nowhere near the price, so it doesn't really affect it, but the time is important.
Now you put them into the system and you're selecting them right now to go to the top.
Yeah, I'm putting them from the bottom to the top, one of each.
And then you're just going to make it easy on yourself and edit those.
I'm going to edit those. Now let's say I want to do my second harmonic, right? I'm going to go geocentric 180 in and 0. Okay, I'm going to change every one to geocentric 180. I'm going to save that system as geocentric 2.
Too bad you just can't capture that.
Go down each line and paste it.
Capture it and paste it. Yeah, I know. It would be nice if you could do that. Well, what I did first, what I would suggest first of all, if you're going to do geocentric, edit the defaults to geocentric, and then you don't have to change that every time, you know. And then go back and edit it, the default back to heliocentric, and you don't have to change it every time while you're doing your heliocentric systems. But for now, don't worry about the heliocentric systems, because for me, heliocentric planetary lines and planetary aspects are great for research, because you get the, if you're looking at a very long term, rather than getting multiple rippled aspects, you're going to get one, or you're going to get in line format, you get a nice straight clean line. So if you're looking at 10 years, you don't want a Jupiter line that's going like this, and all the lines going like that, because then it becomes this big spaghetti thing, you know. But if you put the heliocentric lines on there, you just see the average motion of the planet, you know, in a nice clean line, and you can see that, yes, this stock for 10 years now has been traveling up this Jupiter line. That's why Jeanne watches them on the bread and butter stocks. She uses the helio lines because it creates a real nice clean support zone, you know, that you want to watch for your buys. But so I use the helio lines a lot in the helio aspects for research, but when it comes to daily trading, I'm looking only at geocentric because we are on Earth, and the timing is just much cleaner.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I understood when you went in and you added stuff and then you edited it to the geocentric and you're doing 360 and 80. Where I need clarification is when you say, I saved this system to G1 or G2 as you're choosing to name it.
Well, if I put the name here,
So all of those under 360 you save as a system G1. How did you save the whole system?
that's what I'm saying. I change every single line, right, to that value, correct? Then I type in here system name, geocentric 1 or geocentric 2.
So everything that's in that top box is saved as a system.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I type in the name, and then I click on save.
And so everything that's in the top.
And yeah, everything that's in the top section. It's just like any of your, yeah, if once you get used to using the program, you'll see in the indicators list, and everything that you add to a program, in the aspect section, you always add from the bottom to the top. Anything on the top list is what goes on your chart, or what goes in your system. You know, we are always adding from the top, from this list, up to that list. And we're creating, that's just a short list of everything that we want in this system.
When you do this for your mirrored lines, do you look at the mirrored lines by themselves or with the non-mirrored lines together?
By themselves. Yeah, I don't think that non-mirrored line, well, a mirror line crossing a non-mirror line just means that that planet is at an exact degree. So if I put a Mars line at 30 degrees and a Mars mirror line at 30 degrees, the points where they cross are multiples of 15.
Yeah, but you could get the idea of seeing
Mhm.
the angle if you put them together.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, Jeanne looks at them, I look at them. We always look at them on charts when we're looking at trends.
But do you put?
But when I'm
put
looking
them in
at-
a system together.
No, because it's well, you could if you wanted to, but for me it's redundant because I know where the planets are every day. I mean, I look at the ephemeris 20 times a day. I know exactly. I mean, it's burned into my head on any given day where a planet is. You know, so if you know that's the point. It's an everyday trading. It's not a it's not a pastime. It's an everyday kind of thing. I mean, you could do a workup every night if you're just trading a few stocks, and you can spend an hour a day or a half hour a day and do a workup with the system, so it makes it a lot faster to figure out what's going on. But it's a full-time endeavor. You have to keep at it. You have to know where the planets are, and I recommend that every single day you do take a good long look at. Let's go ahead and so we save that. When we get out of there, I just cancel out because I already have it there. Every day I go into the planet section and I look at the ephemeris, not the live clock. I look at the live clock a lot, but I like to just look at it like this on the wheel. If you click on that button right there, it becomes a wheel. This is the ephemeris. Yeah, click on planets, click on view ephemeris. But anyway, every day I look at this and I kind of burn it into my memory because I'm looking at the visual relationship between the planets. You can see an awful lot, like looking at this. Like look at where Jupiter is, this one. and look at where Pluto is, that one. Okay, and you see that distance between the two? That's almost exactly 72 degrees. I only know that because I'm so used to looking at the wheel that I can look at it now, and I can see when planets are almost at exactly 72 degrees. And also look at the fact that Mars is right near the midpoint of those two planets. And that's a very powerful situation. This is why I'm expecting a major reversal here, because not only do we have the Sun-Pluto aspect coming up, we also have that Jupiter-Pluto 72 exact coming up, and in the next couple weeks, and Mars is at the midpoint of that energy right now. So,
just to clarify for a novice here, is that the Earth at the center?
yeah, if you're looking geocentric, the Earth is right in the center, and that's the Sun.
Okay.
If I click over to heliocentric by clicking on the Sun here, then they just switch positions, you see.
So which one do you use, the geo or the helio? Or both?
I use geo every day. I rarely look at helio on a daily basis. I do look every day when I go into the aspects. I do keep track of the major heliocentric aspects that are coming up, like squares, trines, oppositions, and conjunctions, because they do play a part, but it's a very small part in on the daily timing, you know. But if I have a heliocentric major aspect between two outer planets, it is gonna affect the mood, or a major reversal. But it probably won't be the timer. You see what I mean? It'll be the geocentric aspects around it that we get the exact timing from.
So this is like looking at a weather chart. Every day you're gonna look at the chart, you're gonna like know it and feel it.
Yeah, and by doing that, you get kind of a persistent memory of what's going on, and you don't have to think about it anymore, because you know the relationships that are upcoming. It's like you said, somebody said yesterday, you know, should we put a trine system on that, or should we look at the trines on the planetary price lines to find out if there's any energy there? And I said, no, there won't be. You know, I knew that because I know where all the planets are. All the planets right now are locked in this, they're all within a 160 degree area here, you know. They're all very close together, and the only ones on the outside of that are Saturn and Pluto, and they've already passed the trine. So I knew, just from, you know, my persistent memory, that the trines would be useless to look at right now.
You said you were expecting a reversal pertaining to what exactly?
On the equities, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, that's what we were talking about yesterday about the S&P. We were looking for where it might reverse, you know, and that 965 was our prime candidate. Now they've taken that out, so, but that doesn't mean that it's out of the picture yet, and we'll talk about that later, because it could still be a second lower top, you know, and on a double top situation, and that's just as important as the first one. It's still a week out, so there's still time for all kinds of scenarios to set up. But right now we're just gonna keep it in the back, put it back in the background, and remember it. At any rate, then to set up a mirror system, obviously, we do the same thing. System's new, and we add all our lines up there: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc. And we change each one to geocentric. We change it to, say we're doing a trine system, we do 120, and we just enable the mirror. We change the mirror to a yes. And that'll, every line like that, and that'll give us our mirrored system. So once you go to the trouble of setting all these things up, then we will sit down and talk about that right now, how easy it is to use them, how easy it is to find out what's going on at any given time. Okay.
What does
Oh.
that say? Excuse me, Tom, but what does that say up there? Where it's so, you know, okay, it's green writing up above, and I can see Sun, Earth, Pluto.
Yeah. See, I've got my geocentric second harmonic mirror system on this chart right now. So every line is geocentric 180. Yes. See? If I wanted now, see, I'm looking.
The tab that we have is there's 60 on this page, right?
Yeah, but we're not on that page. We're not on that page yet. I'm just talking about. I just wanted to spend some time clarifying a few things before we move on. Anymore.
I
Let's.
can't read that, what's in blue down there. Over there at the far left, what does that say?
Where?
Way,
the red writing.
yeah, underneath the red writing, yeah.
That's the Jupiter line.
That's the Jupiter.
Yeah, that's this one right here.
Oh, I see, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And the red is.
they're all the same. Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and the node. And then I've got dynamic trio on there. At any rate, what I wanted to show you next was just to clarify the factor. So let's get a bond chart up there because that's the one that I have to use a factor on, and you'll find others that you have to use a factor on.
What's the determine whether we use it?
I'm going to tell you. You'll see. Okay, now let's assume that I called this bond chart up, right? And there's my price chart, and I want to see this is a stock chart or whatever it is, and I want to look at a planetary line. Now I go into planetary lines and I say, let's see what a Uranus line looks like on that, and I just add it to that, and I click on exit, and then what I get is that. Okay, and what I'm looking at, is a Uranus line that's moving much too fast to be a Uranus line. It's moving way too fast, and it's going to become even more evident if it occurs to you that looks like it's too fast, and you want to double check. Add a sun line on there, and see what that looks like. It's like vertical. Well, it shouldn't be. The sun doesn't move that fast. I mean, through price. I mean, what we're trying to do is figure out what the dynamic of the market is when we look at it the first time, and the sun line should be a fast trend line, but it shouldn't be. That looks like a moon line. On another chart, if I were looking at another chart, that would look like a moon line. Just for reference, let's go to the wheat and look at a sun line. We get the same amount of data on the screen. This is the wheat with the roughly the same amount of data on the screen, and look what the difference is. This sun line is defining trends nicely, as it should do on the wheat, And on our bonds,
How do we know as novices looking at an angle of the line to know?
well, look at it. Just look at it. That's what I'm saying. Look at it and look at that. Use that as your reference point right there. That chart. That's what a sun line should look like. This is about a 10 months worth of data on a screen, almost a year. If you get a year's worth of data on a screen, your sun line should be roughly a 45-degree angle for the dynamic to be correct. That's what I want it to look like. A sun line should always be right at about a 45-degree angle, and that makes sense because the sun is the timer, and it goes 90 degrees through each season, and so 45 degrees fits right into that. It should be about 45 degrees.
Thomas, why are you using helio as opposed to geo?
Well, the geo and helio sun line is the same thing. It's the sun. It's either the sun or the Earth. If I change that to geo, it's going to look exactly the same. See?
Okay.
It's the only planet that'll do that. I mean, because it's the same motion. From the Earth, the orbit of the sun is 365 days. From the sun, the orbit of the Earth is 365 days. The same thing. It's an inversion. So, and there is no retrograde.
Why don't you just say, well, look, it doesn't fit, I'll use something else, instead of trying to change the line?
Because I want to know. I mean, if there's something going on planetarily, I want it to fit. But I mean, you'll see what I mean when you go home and try it. because on the bonds, you know, the problem is that now let's change these. Let's edit these and see what the difference is.
I guess I have a sense that you're sort of like playing with nature here. That's the way it's supposed to be.
No.
It's not.
No. It's a result. It's not a result of the market. It's a result of the factor of the decimal place. It's like for the Dow Jones, we've all been for a long time now. We say 1 degree equals 10 points. On the wheat, it equals. I mean, you have that choice of fitting it to the market, and you have to, because if we said on the Dow Jones, okay, well, we can't change anything. We can't form fit anything. And the Dow Jones 1 degree has to equal 1 point, then we have to look at 360 degree lines and 240 degree lines, or else we're going to have a million of them on the chart. You see what I mean? And same thing with the bonds. I want to change that factor, and I'm going to change it to -1.
Just changing the scale.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm just changing the calculation, and now I've got a nice even separation between the Uranus lines, and it's defining the motion of that market much more nicely than just that one single line, that one Uranus line on 24 degrees. It should be, and that's the key on the 15th harmonic at 24 degrees. A planetary line should describe the motion of a market very well, because that's the best one, the best combination of the best harmonics.
Could you say that again, please?
At 24 degree division, a planetary line should describe the motion of any market very well. It should set up very nicely as support and resistance. And then another test for that is to change it to 72. This is the ultimate test for me, is to change it to 72, because 72 should be catching major tops and bottoms. And we do have a major top here right near the 72. So that speaks to me even more loudly than the fact that the 24 is describing the motion nicely.
Thomas?
Yeah.
I never had that experience that I have to change the factor.
Well, what markets are you watching?
I never do the bonds.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking at a currency, you might find that you have to do it too. And if you're looking at stocks that are trading less than $10, you find that you might have to do it too, because
Do what to?
change the factor.
On currencies, I have to go to -2 on the factor.
Yeah, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it just doesn't look right. It just doesn't work right. You know.
It tries to self-adjust, but when it doesn't quite fit, then you have to add your factor in mechanically.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we've tried to it should all in a perfect world it would self-adjust, but in a perfect world all markets would trade in the same unit. You know. I mean, we've got to deal with markets trading in 30 seconds. You know. And trading in 4 decimal places, as in the case of currencies, and it just can't figure all that out sometimes. Sometimes you have to give it a leg up, and you manually tell it how to deal with it, and that's what the factor is all about. It's just a manual way of telling it if it doesn't figure it out itself. Sometimes it will. Sometimes you look at a stock and you put the lines up there, and it just looks fine. Sometimes you put it up there and it looks all wrong, and you say, oh, now I got to fiddle with the factor.
So the
How
market
do
takes a
you
good
know
guess as
it's
to.
wrong? How
That's
do
what I
you
just
know?
told you how you know when it's wrong. Put a sunline on there, put a year's worth of data, put a sunline on there. If it's not roughly 45 degrees, it's wrong.
And you have to find the factor so that
Mhm.
that sunline looks at a 45-degree angle, then you know the rest will be okay.
Right, let's change the factor on the bond sunline to -1. And there you go. That's what it should look like. I always use the wheat as a reference, because the wheat's always trading roughly in a wheel of 360. It's like the perfect average market, and I always reference back to it. You know, as far as what's really going on, and what I think the wheat is like the best average market in the world. I mean, for what's really affecting things. You know, it's totally tied to the earth. It's as old as dirt. You know. Yeah. So I look to the wheat for a lot of information. I think anybody trading anything should always watch the wheat. Anybody should always watch the wheat for just for determining what is the power of a particular aspect. I mean, the Sun-Mercury conjunctions, people don't realize how powerful they are, you know. But I'll tell you, you know, on the Dow Jones, the Sun-Mercury conjunction will tell you a lot about what's really going on. Like if they always works where there'll be a top, and then a week later, a week and a half later, you'll have a Sun-Mercury conjunction, and it'll do a double top on the Sun-Mercury conjunction, and that's always the trigger that triggers a new trend. And you can tell just by what happens on the day of the Sun-Mercury conjunction where that market's going to be going for the next several weeks. So that's how you determine what kind of a factor you want to look at. Sometimes you have to go out to -2, sometimes you have to go to +1, but you'll get a feel for it. You know, if you might not ever even find a use for it. You might just, the markets that you're looking at, like Peter said, he's never had to use it. You know, you may never have to use it. I just want you to know it's there, so if you ever do have to use it, you know how to use it.
Is that pretty much based on what the price of what you're looking at is? So if your price is anywhere from 10 to say 150, you probably won't have to use the factor.
Right, exactly. And that's why I said, you know, stocks trading in a very small range, penny stocks and stocks that are trading down in the $1, $2, $3 area, you'll definitely probably have to put a factor in there because the computer is not going to, the program is not going to pick up on that.
Same thing for that $40,000 stock that you were talking about.
Oh, sure, yeah, then it would be the same thing, yeah. But actually it might pick up on that because on the Nikkei I have to use a factor of 1. You know, I have to go out because I'm taking a decimal place out because it's 30, 40,000, you know, on the high level, so.
So a negative factor is moving the decimal point to the left.
Right.
So you would use that on small price stocks.
Mm-hmm.
You would use a positive
Yeah, when
factor
price
on-
goes down to very small levels, you know, like the bond trades in one. What the problem with the program with the bonds is that it's reading it as 1, you know, instead of 114, and that's if I change the trading side, the tick size to a decimal place instead of a 30-second, then it probably would work correctly. But I like to see it in 30 seconds because that's what they trade in, you know. So it's the 30 seconds. It's really most of the time it's either an extreme decimal or a extreme fraction that screws it up. And I mean, you know, I don't understand enough about programming to explain it any better than that. But I do know that when we first designed the program and I got it and I looked at the lines on the bonds, and I said, this is not going to work. I mean, I just knew instinctively the first time I saw the galactic, the first, you know, version that I got from Carlos, and I looked at the lines on the bonds and I said, this is not going to work. I said, they're going much too fast. You know, the calculation has to be different. And he said, well, I don't know how to make it do that. It's supposed to do it automatically. And I said, well, obviously it doesn't recognize that sometimes, so maybe we have to put in a manual thing. And Carlos figured it out and put the factor in there for me. And when I got it and I put the factor in there on the bonds, yeah, that's much better. That's much better. And it works. And I mean, at first I thought, well, maybe I am form-fitting it, you know, and I had that you know, kind of nagging suspicion that I might be form-fitting it. But I found out in the last couple of years of watching it that it works just fine. It works just fine. I mean, in the sense that it's exact. You know, I can pinpoint exact highs and lows on the bonds as well. So, like this low right here, that was the Jupiter-Saturn sextile. Let's take that off and take that off. I don't have my mirror systems in here. I just flip it up. See, that's the beauty of having them. I don't have my factor systems, I mean, in this computer. Yeah, if you're a bond trader or you find that you have to use a factor on any of your markets, you might as well just go ahead and make systems for the factor. I'm trying to remember. We had a point on the bonds at 1705. That was our last buy, but it's always it's correct, just like everything else, you know, in the sense that when when an aspect of major importance happens, it's correct, and so that way I do know that the factor is valid. So now, if I want to look at the wheat, say, and I want to figure out what's going on, I can very quickly just go through my systems. I go click on systems. I'm going to go down to clear all and use. I always click on clear all and use because that clears anything that's on the chart already. If I have some indicators on the chart that I want to leave there, I'll just click on use, and it leaves the indicators there, and it throws the system on it as well. But if I keep clicking on use, then it's going to things will start to pile up. Now, if I want to see the third harmonic on the wheat, I just click on geocentric 3, and there's all my trine lines right there. And, you know, first thing that I notice right here is that from this Sun-Mercury conjunction to that Sun-Mercury conjunction on the trine, that was a perfect geometric progression. You know, so I conclude that whenever there's a Sun-Mercury conjunction, I want to look at the third harmonic. Definitely want to, if the third harmonic if the third harmonic, the one trine line crossing between the third Sun and Mercury is near the price on the day that I definitely am gonna watch that for a reversal. I will not ignore it.
So when you analyze the different...
Becomes one of my tools, okay? Sun-Mercury conjunctions of the week, great reversals. Also watch the price level of the conjunction on the third harmonic.
So you're going to make these notes to each other, but will you eventually then, on your wheat or whatever, just put that particular aspect, the ones that you find work on the screen? Or will you keep analyzing?
No, I just have it in my notebook it's on page 1 of the very important best things for the wheat. The best things that I find on the wheat are Sun-Mercury, Sun-Venus, and Mercury-Venus conjunctions for reversals. Okay, those three aspects. Any conjunctions between Sun, Venus, and Mercury are very important on the wheat, and those are the top 3 on my. And then the price level is always correct. It should always be correct for the reversal on either the first through fifth harmonic.
But what I'm asking is, once you make those notes to yourself, then do you create another kind of chart on there where you just put those those aspects and the harmonics they work in?
No, I don't. The question is whether I just create a separate chart with just these aspects on it. And I don't need to, because I have the systems. I can see where the aspects are. With the flick, just a couple of clicks of a button at any given time, I don't need to have a separate chart with just that on it.
That looks all, if you have all those things up there and you've decided only one of them works,
Mm-hmm.
then why not?
I didn't decide only one of them works. I've just picked that one out just now.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean there are other things on here that are gonna work. Like right here, you have a Mars-Saturn trine right there on that high. Okay, and it's also right there with it's not correct on the exact high, but it is right there within the price range on the day, and so that becomes important. All I'm saying is that the systems makes it very easy for me to analyze this price reacting to any aspect very quickly. Like rather than going through the aspect section and creating defaults aspects for every harmonic, and for every combination of planets, I can see a whole lot of information right here very fast. I can see trines between all the planets all at once, all at the same time on this market in price. And that's, I mean, if you tried to do that, if you tried to accomplish that feat using the aspect section, it would take you hours to create all the aspects. A trine aspect between every combination of two planets would take, How many would you have to create to do that if you wanted to see all the combinations of 2 between 9 planets? You know, I mean, I don't know what that series works out to, but it's a lot, an awful lot. You'd have to create at least 50 or 60 aspect indicators to see all that happening. But I've got it all right here, all in one picture. So I can see anytime, because what I'm looking at is anytime any lines cross, like right here where the sun crosses the Uranus line, that's a Sun-Uranus trine. See?
Because this is a 120.
Because this is a 120. So that's a multiple, and that's the main sun line crossing the Uranus line, which is not the main Uranus line. So I know it's not a conjunction. If it was a conjunction, that would be the fat line crossing the fat line.
Like
See?
Mercury and the sun right
Exactly. That's a conjunction.
What's a conjunction?
This one is a conjunction, the Sun-Mercury, because it's the fat line crossing the fat line. This one is not a conjunction. It's a trine because it's the fat line crossing the regular line. You see?
And that's another conjunction down just below it where it peaks, off to the left, way off to the left, right?
Yeah, that's a Saturn-Pluto trine right there. This Pluto line is not. You'll see it. The style is. It should be 1. Jeanne changed it in here, and then all my systems got fat Pluto lines. That's a Saturn-Pluto trine, but you see also that Saturn-Pluto trine was right near this major bottom. You know, and if I were looking at the previous year on the wheat, this is just the December contract, but that Saturn-Pluto trine, the previous 2, you would see that triangle that I was talking about that you have on your other chart, how nicely that happened. So my trine system would have showed me that very quickly. You see, just from Saturn-Pluto trine to trine to trine, how we got that nice triangle. And I'm like, oh, look at that, you know. And that becomes something that I watch for. Outer planet trines now are going to be very important on this market. So.
I thought you were only looking at Sun, Mercury conjunctions, but you were saying also just Sun, Mercury.
The main 3 things I look at on the wheat are any conjunctions between Sun, Mercury, and Venus. So Sun-Mercury conjunctions, Sun-Venus conjunctions, or Mercury-Venus conjunctions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you throw that up real quick?
Well, it looks like we had
Which?
Sun, Venus,
Just
and Sun.
conjunctions?
Conjunction.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if we want to just see the conjunctions, then I'll just put I'll just use the first harmonic.
Why?
Why? Because that's only going to show me conjunctions.
Conjunctions are 318.
No, conjunctions are
Oh, no,
360.
zero.
Yeah, and so we see right here we had. And I always use the crosshairs because then you can line up the aspect with the.
Where do you grab them?
What?
Who crosses them?
Oh, right here. Under the arrow. If you want it to go back to the regular arrow, you just click on the arrow again. If you want to go to crosshairs, you click on the crosshair. And then when you point anywhere on the chart, you can hold down your mouse, and that'll give you the values at the top of the chart for that day. But anyway, you see right here we had a Mercury-Venus conjunction, and that was a little top here. It didn't stop the trend. Then we had a Sun-Venus conjunction right here. Look at that.
Stop there and so reading the top. Okay, the high, how does that?
Well, I'm not looking necessarily at the values right now. I'm just looking at the day of the conjunction, what happened. On the day of this conjunction right here, the Sun-Venus conjunction, I had a spike low that almost touched it. Now, I'd be willing to bet that if I was looking at the July wheat contract on that day, and this is December this year, if I was looking at the front month, the contract that was where the volume was, I'd be willing to bet that that spike low was exact on that aspect.
So when you're trading, you only want to look at your closest month.
Oh yeah, you always want to look at where the volume is.
And then if you're trading the December, you just need to correlate the difference between your current month and your December future and add the difference
Yeah.
to your December to
Yeah, the volume in a futures market, the volume makes all the difference in the world. A good example was when the S&P rolled over from September to December. On the day it rolled over, on the day the volume shifted, there was a major aspect on that day, and I can't remember what it was. But on the day that aspect happened, the September took it out first thing in the morning. And we just immediately went over to the December. The December, the whole complex came down. The December touched it exactly and then took off, but it was on the day the volume shifted. So
So you use the current month until it expires? And then you-
not until it expires, until the volume shifts, because the expiration is still sometimes a month, as much as a month away when the volume shifts. Sometimes there's contracts like in the grains, there's some contracts that never get the volume, you know, that are never heavily traded. Like the September wheat is rarely ever heavily traded.
You'd look at the November.
Well, no, the December.
December.
Yeah, I usually go straight from July to December on the wheat, but I do watch the September. Okay, here's the deal.
Quick question, I remind you of something. When I use Pinnacle data,
Mhm.
I'm looking at back testing and all that.
You're looking at continuous contracts.
What impact do those continuous contracts have on?
You can't back test exact aspects on a continuous contract. You just can't do it. It just won't work because they're average. They're using the gold rule that with some formula to average the price.
You can look for reversals, but not having time and price come together.
You can look at major reversals, but you won't see time and price coming together.
That's why I've had problems trying to determine time and price.
Yeah, you have to get the individual contracts and look at them individually. I would suggest that you get, if you wanted to look at the wheat, I would suggest you get just go get the March, July, and December contracts and just look at those, because those are the ones where the volume usually shifts straight from December to March, from March to July, and from July to. Sometimes it goes into the May, but mostly just goes straight from March to July. You just get those three contracts, that would do you, you know. Or look at Gann style continuous contracts, you know, where it's nothing but that expiration month linked to 1 year after the other.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Or look at Gann style. Gann used continuous contracts that were like he'd take all the December wheat contracts and link them together.
Oh, okay.
And then, but you would only want to use that for your back test in the time that between, say, May and December, from the beginning of July to December. Yeah, about the beginning of July would be when the rollover would happen. So if you're a futures trader, you've got a lot more work ahead of you than if you're a stock trader or you got to. I mean, to determine the power of these things, but this is something you can start using right away because you'll see it happening right away all the time.
So fat line crossing and fat lines of conjunction.
Exactly.
Fat crossing thin is what?
It's relative to the harmonic.
Okay, and the thin crossing a thin.
Is relative to the harmonic. If we're looking at the third harmonic, a thin crossing a thin is a trine.
Okay, so.
If you're looking at the fourth harmonic, a thin crossing a thin is a square.
Okay, so
or an opposition.
The third harmonic, a fat crossing a thin is a trine,
Yeah.
and a thin crossing a thin.
Yeah.
And a fat crossing a thin would be more powerful than a thin crossing a thin.
A fat crossing a thin is more powerful in price because that's the actual position of one of the planets at least.
Okay.
Anytime there's a main planet line involved in the price calculation and price is there, that is more important. That's why we made them fat.
All those look the same size to me, right there.
Well, that's because we're looking at the first harmonic. Those are only 360 lines. Yeah.
Tom, could you take and compress that down a little bit so we could see the Mars
What'd you
and
just
Venus?
change?
I'm going to fix the scale. I'm going to go out to 6 and down to 2 so we can see a whole range of 360. I fixed this. If you click over on the right side of the screen here, anywhere in here, just click your button, you'll get the scale window. And if you click on fixed, you can set the scale to whatever you want.
Well, how do you know? So that's the high and the low.
Yeah, I'm setting the high limit here and the low limit down here.
But it could skew it then, couldn't it?
It
Just
just
a different
changes the
skew.
size of it.
It's just a different way of looking at it.
Okay.
I mean, you don't worry too much about it. You've got to go home. You've got to go home, Karen, and get familiar with the functions of the program. I mean, you haven't spent enough time with it yet. But all of this stuff is in the manual, and if you go through, you'll find all of these things, and that'll explain a lot.
Is this an easy to read manual?
It's as easy to read as any other manual. Here's your Mars-Venus conjunction. It happened right here, and it corresponded with that high right there. And
how would you set a price on that, or what you're saying is?
Well, if I'm looking at this right now, and I just fixed the scale, I wanted to see where it was relative to the conjunction. I put my crosshairs down here, and I see the conjunction was roughly at 256, and that high was roughly at.
A third of the way to the.
It was well, I can see that visually. Yeah, it was roughly at 380. That's very near the 120. So I'm going to unfix my scale. I'm going to put my scale back to automatic, and I'm going to go to my third harmonic system.
Did Uranus or Saturn have anything to do with that too, Tom? Coming across?
Well, it was on the main Saturn line, so that lended power to it.
Okay.
But you see now, that the actual conjunction occurred at that price
There you go.
on the third harmonic. So we knew that, and it was on the main Saturn line, so that was lending power. There were aspects to Saturn that both of those planets trined Saturn right previous to their conjunction. And we had the exact same pattern set up on the S&P right there, where the S&P came up to 976, and that was where the trines were, and it popped up to 980, which was where the conjunction was going to be a few days later, and then tanked. And the wheat did the exact same. That's why I say you always need to. That's why I think everybody should look at the wheat, because the wheat will tell you a lot about how patterns form. You know, it's a great average market.
Tom, one of the things you said on this trine chart on the third harmonic is that you showed that Mercury Sun
Mm-hmm.
that was a perfect, low and high right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you called that a Mercury Sun conjunction.
It is a conjunction, but it was correct on the third harmonic. On the day, see, we know that well, first of all, Mercury and Sun never have a trine. They only do conjunctions. I mean, well, they do sextiles, semi-sextiles, and occasionally you see a Sun-Venus semi-square, but you won't see anything outside of that, because geocentrically, here, let me show you.
Mercury never gets far enough away from the sun to become a trine.
Geocentrically, this is what the Sun, Venus, Mercury looks like. The Sun is like a center line, and Venus and Mercury are rotating around it. So you never get any aspect outside of 30 degrees away, or 45 degrees away in the case of Venus. So the conjunction is the main point, and you get many Sun-Mercury conjunctions in a year. You have one here, you have one here, you have one here, you have one here, and you want one here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually 6 this year. Yeah, and it just retrogrades back and forth across the sun. So
So really, when you said a thin line crossing a thin line is a trine in this harmonic,
well, that
it's really
in the,
pertaining more to outer planets.
right, yeah, that doesn't apply to Sun, Mercury, and Venus.
Okay.
This is just one of the. That's something that basic planetary knowledge that you need to know, that aspects between how things work, and that's why I say, if you were an avid ephemeris watcher, like I say you ought to be, you would see how that works. I mean, watch the Sun and Mercury as they rotate. You see how that works. Mercury goes past the Sun, backs up, goes past the Sun, backs up, goes past the Sun, backs up. Mercury's the little purple one there.
Is it? I thought it was the white one.
Mercury's the purple one.
Oh.
This is the Sun, and watch how. I'm just going forward, 1 month at a time. Watch how it'll pass it up, and then back away, and pass it up, and back away, and pass it up, and back away. Pardon? Yeah, they're just doing this little dance, and that's why it's like a ticking clock, and that's why it works so great as a counter. That Mercury Sun cycle, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a waltz, is what it is. On the wheat, the Mercury Sun is the wheat waltz.
And that's the retrograde. That's the retrograde.
That's great. I'm glad. What?
That's the retrograde then.
Yeah, every time it retrogrades, it goes back across the conjunction, and then it goes direct and goes back across the conjunction.
Okay.
So in a cycle of 3, you get, in the cycle of a year, you get 6 conjunctions off of the 3 retrogrades. So you get 1 each time. You get as it
Show me visually the conjunction. Can you show me?
on the
Visually?
on the bar graph.
No, on that.
Oh, okay. Visually,
What would it look like?
well, here's the sun's at 2 there. Let me go back. Here, the sun's at 1.
The line, it's
I have to zero in on it. See, the sun's at 28. The sun. I can zero in on it just by clicking through 26 and 26. See, I'm pointing at each one and getting the degree. There's 26 and 26. That's the conjunction right there.
okay, thank you.
I can see it easier on that kind of.
And Linda wants us to break, so we're gonna take a break.
Super, Jeff, Tom.